Can I admit something?
Yes. Oh, I love it admitting.
I hate yoga.
To Lilly Balch? You say that to Lilly Balch?
How dare, I mean, I'm leaving this conversation right now.
She's signing off.
Nice knowing you.
Damn, let's talk some shit.
It's Polly Siegel
And Victoria Aaron.
two licensed therapists who've spent way too much money on degrees, certifications, and trainings. We both love what we do and couldn't imagine working in any other profession. But we're forced to be serious all the time, and that gets boring. Shit Talking Shrinks discusses important mental health topics, the human experience, and society at large, while poking fun along the way. It won't be all fun and games because after every episode, you'll walk away with tangible tools to navigate life more effectively.
We love a tangible tool. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Shit Talking Shrinks. We're here. Hi, Polly. And we have an awesome guest today with us. Her name is Lilly Balch.
You nailed it.
We're really happy to have Lilly. Last time I checked, you're NYC in London-based yoga teacher, meditation teacher, author, and the host of the Morning Ritual podcast, which is a kick-ass podcast for meditation and just resetting and starting off your day in a beautiful way. So we are so happy to have you, and we're going to get into it.
Well, I am so excited to be here. And I think you two are hilarious and awesome and bringing lightness into a topic that can be kind of scary and daunting. So thank you for doing what you do.
What a sexy life, too. You go between London and New York.
Listen, it sounds sexier than it is. I do too much. I think I can be in two places at once, but I can't.
So when you're in London, I need to know, like when you're in London, do you switch to a British accent? And then when you're back in the US, you go with your natural one?
I wish that I could actually do a British. Anytime I try, it sounds like I just say, like, hello, Poppet. And that's like, I just add Poppet to everything. And it's like, that's not the vibe.
You know what that reminded me of? Remember in early 2000s, the movie with, what was his name? He was a pirate.
Johnny Depp. What? How did that escape you?
Remember, he'd be like, hello, Poppet.
Oh, what a wet dream, a pirate. Could you imagine? Like, what? It's crazy.
You think pirates are sexy?
Oh, my God. Yeah. Like, ravage me, take all my stuff, leave me for dead on an island, of course.
Steal all my shit.
Steal all my shit. Hell yeah, dude. Steal my shit for sure.
Oh, goodness. All right. Enough fucking around. So today we are talking about how to declutter your mind, because the mind is a dark and mysterious and can be a doomy, gloomy place. And I think so much of us get caught up in our heads and we get trapped in our minds, and it creates so much yuck. And so, we're going to go through how to get out of there. And get out of there alive.
Yeah. I mean, the mind is a wild place.
Yeah. It's the craziest place there is, right?
Yeah. And I think like our society is so obsessed with like taming the wild. And I think I don't want to go too off tangent before we even start, but I think a big part of this work is letting it be a bit wild and like being okay with that.
I think my therapist calls this like dancing with your dark side.
Oh, I love that.
Like not repressing it and just like getting into like a little bit of a tango with it,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is I've recently heard this like beach ball analogy, and where if you have like an emotion or a thought and you don't like it, it's too wild, it's too crazy, and you shove it down or ignore it, it's like shoving a beach ball down under water. And like life is busy. I get distracted all the time. I'm going to get distracted during this interview like 10 times. And when we get distracted, the ball just rises up, hits us in the face, whether we want it to or not. So it's going to rise regardless. What we resist persists. So when you can learn to like, yeah, dance with the darkness, live with the thoughts that are arising, the emotions, the sensations, and be cool with that and befriend the mind, that is when we start to see, that is like the start of the decluttering process, is just this practice of, I'm using like big words here, which we can dive into more, but like presence and acceptance.
Well, and I think society trains us that when something is yucky or uncomfortable or unpleasant, that we need to get rid of or we need to avoid it. That is conditional training that we've all gone through since we were little. And so society doesn't really promote leaning in, holding space, being curious, being exploratory. Those aren't principles that we're invited to do. And so, and then you have evolution, which is 500,000 years of avoidance. And that's just a recipe for not learning how to be in it. And so I think what you're saying is, instead of viewing these alarming, dangerous, scary thoughts, uncomfortable thoughts as like a monster, instead be curious and exploratory and just open up to, okay, this is here right now. This is in front of me. Like, can I sit in it? Can I notice it? Can I be present in front of it? Can I evaluate it or just be without judgment? That's how I'm understanding what you're saying, Lily.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly it. And I think it's kind of cliche to say, but the most important relationship that you'll ever have is the one that you have with yourself. And that includes your mind. And in order to be friends with your mind, in order to like be okay with hanging out with your mind, you need to understand that you are not your mind. Like, you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the observer. And when you can cultivate that witness mind where you're stepping back and observing, that is the start of the befriending process. And then once you can become the observer, you start to notice more space between you and your thoughts, between what happens to you and how you react. Right? Like, I also have to say that when I'm like stressed out, which life is stressful, when I'm stressed out, my little space between like what happens to me and how I respond seems like so teeny tiny. So I think it's like, I don't know, it's all layered, but just understanding that you can claim that space. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that space?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. The space between your mind and your reaction to life. It's like, you know, like especially in a high stress situation or when you just keep getting hit, right? Like the last couple of weeks, I just keep getting hit with shit. And it's so annoying. It's so annoying. I'm so frustrated by it because for the most part, like I've just been like floating and enjoying. And then I just keep getting pounded, not in a good way. And I have like, you know, and it's like, fuck, like that space in between, like, what do I do? What do I do? Where do I go? How do I act? And whoa, like, this is what's happening to you. You do not have to react. You can zoom out. You can explore. You can be curious. You can do all those things. Like, it's non-existent. I mean, I've acted out heavy in the last couple of weeks, heavy, you know?
No, Victoria, when I'm like getting pounded in that way that you're talking about, not the good way, that
glad we all agree on the pounding.
I turn into a mini monster. I do things and I say things that I'm like, what? And it really, really, really is like, this is my life. I'm a meditation teacher. I'm a yoga therapist. Like, this is what I formed my life around. And I still have those moments of, yeah, my mind is so cluttered. My mind is so overwhelmed. My body is like having this stressful reaction. And then I show up as someone that I'm like, not the most proud of. And going back just to like, the decluttering of the mind and going back to like accepting our crazy minds is just, it helps me to remember that meditation and mindfulness is not about like clearing the mind, because we're going to have thoughts, because that's what our brain does. We're not going to not have thoughts. So just coming back to that idea, and almost, I usually talk about it like with emotions, like expanding the container of your heart so you can feel all these, wild emotions at once. But how can we, and I guess I'm fleshing this idea as I speak, but how can we expand the container of the mind? Like when I picture a cluttered home, I picture like my old New York City apartment, which is like teeny tiny and filled with like too much stuff. And how can we move out of that New York City apartment and into like a castle that is huge? And if we put all that stuff in that castle, it would feel like the castle is spacious and empty. And it's like, I don't know. What do you ladies do to create more space in the mind?
That's such a romantic viewpoint of such a fucked up thing to handle. It's like,
that's my life.
Yeah, that's me. Okay, so I'm going to go with your visual here. New York City apartment, you're spending an arm and a leg, and it's like 400 square feet, and there's shit everywhere. I'm thinking hoarder status, okay?
Yeah, let's all picture it.
So you're in this apartment, and if you get entangled in your thoughts, and if you wrestle with your thoughts, then you're surrounded by all the clutter, and you have nowhere to go. Right? It's the entanglement. It's the wrestling. It's the giving it attention and power. Right? And then when you go to the castle, you can still have the same clutter. But if you're not engaging in it and you're not getting entangled in it and you're not giving it so much power and truth and validity, then there's so much more expansiveness because you're able to see outside of what you're being surrounded in. You have the ability to step into your environment and use your 5 senses and experience so much richness that's not involved in the clutter.
Well, wait, hold on. Isn't what gives it power though, the fact that you're fighting with it, the fact that you're resisting it? Like I remember when I first got sober, right? Like I was like 2 days sober and I was driving down the street and this is 11 years ago. And I saw this little old lady and in my head, I thought to myself, I want to kill her. And I was so disturbed by that thought. And I went to one of my friends in my 12-step fellowship and I was like, dude, I have to tell you, I just had like a homicidal thought. And he was like, yeah, duh. Like, what do you mean? Of course you did. That's human. So like, it's the fighting with it. It's the, no, I can't think that. No, you can't have that thought. That's crazy. You're sick. And I might be sick, but it's the like, acceptance of the thought. It's you're here, right? The clutter is here. Welcome. Hello. How do we manage this space?
Yeah, I think that's like such a key point here is the fighting with the thought, which is really causing the clutter. Like you're giving it power. You're like, it's the judgment that why am I thinking, like, why do I want this old woman to die? Sure, I mean, I'm sure many people would like judge that thought, but can you just let that thought be there without like needing to judge it? And just that how your friend so easily showed compassion of like, you're human. Listen, you're day 2 sober. Like you're going through your own stuff. How can we be like our friend in the moment before we add to like the clutter? So I think the clutter of the mind, it is really that fighting with the thoughts, right? And how can we just be, be the observer? Oh, I had that weird thought, that uncomfortable thought, that thing. And then it's like, it can pass. You're not holding on to it. You're not hoarding.
Well, to me though, fighting is entanglement. To me, those are in some ways synonyms, because if I'm entangled in it, I'm engaging in it and I'm giving it energy and I'm giving it brain power. That is fighting versus being like, okay, I had the thought that I want this old lady to rot in hell. Okay, that was extreme, but
no, I actually wanted to hit her with my car.
Oh, right. Yeah, you wanted to run her over.
I did.
But in that moment, you could acknowledge, okay, like, ooh, I had an intrusive thought.
Yeah.
Listen, we all have intrusive thoughts. Yesterday, I thought about wanting to destroy a particular person in which I won't name. Like I literally thought out, how can I destroy their life?
Did you dance with it though? Did you dance with it? What'd you do with it? Did you get jiggy with it?
No, in that moment, I was like, whoa, I'm having the thought of like causing harm. Okay. I could understand why I'm having that thought. I'm feeling really painful emotions. But I didn't judge it. I didn't assess it. I didn't label myself as a bad human because I wanted someone else to suffer. Because quite frankly, we all have someone that we want to suffer. Like, come on.
Even an NYC and London-based yoga teacher and mindfulness meditation professional. Like, have you ever felt that way?
Like you want to fucking destroy someone?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Lilly Balch. Hell yeah.
I have. I mean, spread the word. Like, that's me.
I love it. It's so fucking human. It's so fucking human.
But for all of our listeners, none of us are homicidal. None of us are bad people for admitting that right now. It's that we were able to recognize the intrusiveness. We were able to recognize and label it as harm. And then we were able to notice and move on and engage and come back to our values. Because Lilly, myself, and Victoria are not people that are actually going to act and cause harm. That's the piece to recognize, that our thoughts don't define who we are. They're not representative of our character or our moral compass. We can't attach judgment or labeling of that deciphers our essence or our being. And the minute you detach from that, the minute you can notice it and label it for truly what it is, that's freedom and liberation right there. That's not fighting it. That's accepting it. That's noticing the clutter in your 400 square apartment and immediately transforming into your castle. And you move on and you engage in other spaces.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is a change in the way you think. It's a change in the way, you live. It's a change in like perspective. And I think if your listeners are new to this type of like thought work, I just want to say like it takes a while to I'm still working on this, but it takes a while to really put this, I think, into action. I don't know. For me, it did.
Well, you have Buddhist monks that have dedicated their entire lives, and I have trained with Buddhist monks who have said, I still get entangled. And I don't do shit. I sit on a mountain all day and I meditate. Like I have no life responsibilities. I'm basically living on a kibbutz. We all help each other out. Like they still get entangled because that's what it means to be human. That's it. And there's no person on this planet that doesn't get entangled or doesn't fight with their thoughts sometimes.
I want to take a quick pause to talk about our sponsor, a company called BetterHelp. It's an online therapy platform where all the therapists are licensed and accredited professionals. It's affordable. You pay a low flat fee for therapy with your therapist, and it's convenient. Do it at your own time and at your own pace, and you can communicate with your therapist as much as you want and whenever you feel is needed. And more importantly, it's effective. Thousands of people have benefited from therapy using BetterHelp, and we're really grateful to offer all of our listeners 10% off your first month. So if you're interested in receiving therapy ASAP, click the link in our show notes and you can get started. And you get to save money.
And you know what else is really interesting? And Lilly, I'm definitely curious to hear. I know Pauline and I talk a lot about regulation, right? We talk a lot about when you're in fight or flight, when you're dissociated, what that looks like and how we need to get back to a state of connectedness. And obviously, right, in our most stressful moments, in the wounds that are the deepest, right? Like for me, my brain space is the shortest when the trigger is deep, right? I'm talking mother wound, all that shit. I just go into survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really hard, I think, for a lot of people to understand, like, not only are you having this inability to kind of sort through your thoughts and make your brain a castle, make your mind a castle, right? But you're also feeling like your life is being threatened.
Yeah. And I think that's such like an important point, that safety comes first. Groundedness comes first. If you're in fight or flight, like doing this type of thought work, like I don't know how effective it'll be in the moment. I think you have to go to these, like your toolkit, so to speak, and be like, what do I need? At least this is what I do. I'm like, what do I need to first and foremost just like ground down and relax? And once I finally feel safe in my body in the moment, I've established some level of, like homeostasis or some level of presence, then I can kind of get to this stuff that we're talking about, the inner castle.
Let's bring brain science into this. When you're in a trauma response, fight, flight, freeze, faint, fawn, your amygdala is activated and your prefrontal cortex is turned off.
Which means for somebody that doesn't know, like your decision making is zero, right? Like you're just totally in a place of, I need to live.
And I need to survive, and your executive functioning, it completely declines. Your processing, your evaluating, all of that goes out the window. And so to Lily's point, if you're not grounded, if you don't actively turn on the prefrontal cortex, you won't be able to have that pause between stimulus and response. And the pause is mindfulness. The pause is the power. Because you're going to have tons of stimulus throughout your life. And if you can't pause, notice, regulate, move out of the clutter, then you can't respond in a way that's in alignment with your values or your best self.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I get why you talk about regulation so much. And it's like so interconnected. And I come from like a lineage of yoga and mindfulness, and particularly because like that's what's helped me, but I understand there's no one size fits all with like these tools and techniques. And I also have come to understand that every day and every moment and every trigger is different. So sometimes I hate running. I hate it. But sometimes I'm like, I just need to run and sweat and get my heart rate up and breathe heavily. And that is like what I need to complete that stress cycle moment. And other times it's, I need to take a hot bath and then like call a girlfriend and bitch. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Can I admit something?
Yes. Oh, I love it. Admit it.
I hate yoga. Like I really do. And I know that you've dedicated your life's work to it.
To Lilly Balch? You say that to Lilly Balch?
Well, that's why I said, can I be honest?
How dare, I mean, I'm leaving this conversation right now.
She's signing off.
Nice knowing you. It makes me so uncomfortable, yoga.
Can we talk about that?
Let's talk about it.
Because what is so uncomfortable?
My body, my muscles don't move in the way that these poses want me to. I go into muscle spasm. This has happened. I've tried yoga multiple times where I've gone to different classes. I even had a personal yogi try to teach me. Like I tried so hard to get into it. My muscles like reject it. They don't want to sustain a position for that long, or the contortion of my body. My body's like, no. It's not being present that's uncomfortable. It's not being like in my body that's uncomfortable. It's that like physically my muscles are like, no, thank you.
That's like so fair. And to kind of what I was saying is like, we all want and need different things. And if your body's like, this doesn't feel good, just because millions of other people love it, it's like honoring that.
I've said this 1,000 times and I'm so sorry. I'm beating a dead horse on this podcast, but like the last 10 months of my life, like I've just gone through such a major life change. And so like for a lot of it, right, I wanted to go to the gym and slam heavy weight in the ground and chuck it across the room and take a sledgehammer to a tire and bang the shit out of it. And the last, I'd say 2 weeks, I've been going to hot yoga. Like my body is like Victoria, like just look at yourself in a mirror, breathe, sweat a lot, move really gently. I go to like I go to a hot yoga class where it's the same flow every time. And it feels so good and safe to me. And I like love that I've developed that relationship with my body where I'm like, oh, this is what I need. I don't need to lift a 400-pound tire today. It doesn't feel good. Just want to flow.
Maybe Lily, you could teach me yoga if you want to sign up for that, which you may not after I insulted you.
Holly, I would love to. Also because the yoga that I teach is like, we're not getting into any contortionist positions or holding them for very long. It's like most of it, you're lying on the back, feeling your right big toe moving.
Oh, sign me up for that. I would love that.
Oh my God. Fuck yeah.
So Lily, we are all about tangible tools. And so we want our listeners, after kind of hearing us discuss about decluttering your mind and being the observer and starting to notice thoughts, but not necessarily getting entangled or fighting in them. What can someone do if they wanted to start immediately after they close out of this episode? What are 3 things they could do to declutter their mind?
First things first, you want to like lay the groundwork, lay the foundation to be able to declutter the mind. So that to me is ground down, get out of the mind into the body and let your body really feel the earth. And so the way that I love to sort of guide this practice and do is literally like feeling your feet on the ground and letting the weight of your body settle down into the feet, and just keep your attention on where your feet meet the earth and take a few deep breaths. Like you could do that right now as you're listening to this. And if you have another way that you're like, you know what, when I go on a walk in nature, when I run, that's when I feel grounded and I can relax. That is like step 1. And then the second, like tangible tool to decluttering the mind would be to do a short practice. I mean, this might be too generic. You tell me, Polly, but do a practice about just observing the thoughts and without judgment.
It's like, I want you to imagine you're in a movie theater. Okay. And you're sitting in one of the seats, and on the big screen are your thoughts, right? So you're almost observing just like you would a movie. And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to get up. You don't have to interact with what's happening on the screen. You just sit and notice. Okay. I just had a thought that I need to grab milk. Fuck, I need to text back my friend Sarah. Like you're just watching it like a teleprompter on the screen.
Yeah, I love that. I love that image. And third thing, like tangible, practical tool we didn't even talk about in this episode, but it all intertwines, is get a piece of paper and a pen and just write, like stream of consciousness, brain dump, write. You can even do that as you're sitting and observing the mind like a movie theater. You can write the thoughts. And sometimes that action of pen to paper, thoughts onto the paper can really help in that process. But the overarching like work to be done is to practice being that observer. And the more that you can like learn how to cultivate the witness mind, the more that you deeply, deeply understand and embody this fact that you are not your thoughts, the more that you can like really understand that, the more you're going to catch that space between stimulus and response. And the more space that you catch every day will just help that sustainable, it's just a more sustainable way to like keep the mind a little more at peace.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And hopefully there was people even found more of the tangible tools just as we were talking, because they were kind of sprinkled into the entire episode where, you know, not judging your thoughts, not labeling them as good or bad, right or wrong, healthy, unhealthy. Remove the moral tags here. Just notice it for what it is. Letters, words, and sentences in your mind. And they're just stories. The brain is going to construct narratives and tapes all the time as it tries to make sense of the world. But you have the power and you have the choice whether you engage or get entangled or fight or wrestle with it. That is a choice, right? Stimulus happens, the pause is acceptance, and then a response. And so I just want to empower our listeners that you have a lot more control over your mind than you realize. You have a lot more empowerment over your mind than you realize. And notice, and then come back to your beautiful life. And even if your life feels dark and heavy, there is beauty to be found, I guarantee.
Yeah. And one tiny thing just popped up in my brain that helps me so much is replacing judgment with curiosity. A judgment comes up, whether it's about myself, about this person in front of me, about this tree I'm looking at, whatever. How can I replace that thought with curiosity? And then it opens up so much more.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Lilly, from the bottom of our hearts for joining us and for, I guess, entertaining our silliness. We're grateful.
Thank you so much for having me on. And you guys are the shit. Thank you.
Aw. Okay. Big love, everyone. Bye.